Some folks will call my conversation with you today warmongering. I call it preventing much larger conflicts through strength and decisive action. History tells us that appeasing dictators only makes things worse. Welcome, Patriots, to this episode of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. A little more than 3 weeks ago, we asked a simple question. Why do Western democracies tolerate continual criminal behavior from Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China? Why does the United States, the world's most powerful country, tolerate this behavior? Well, folks, since that episode, something significant has happened. The aggressive foreign policy we advocated for, it's being implemented. And the results are already changing the game, changing the world. Today, we'll evaluate the effect of the combined U.S.-Israeli actions against Iran, the geopolitical reactions to those actions, and I'll suggest our next course of action. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. If you're listening to our podcast, please give us your rating and leave us a review. Let me start with the facts about Iran. Israel has destroyed Iran's air defense capability, its air force, and most of its navy. The United States B-2 bombers and United States missiles launched from U.S. submarines and surface ships have severely damaged Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, some reports say the damage was only slight, but knowledgeable observers are calling those reports incorrect. Now, here's what most folks don't know. The International Atomic Energy Agency, that's the IAEA, an autonomous agency within the UN, says the amount of radiation emanating from the bombed sites indicates very significant damage. Damage that will take years to repair. And just think about that for a moment. You know what's interesting? Some people say Iran moved their enriched uranium before the strikes so they can still build nuclear bombs. But let me tell you why I think that's very doubtful. First, these strikes took Iran completely by surprise. I believe the Trump administration's negotiations with Iran were part of that surprise strategy. It was to make Iran feel safe while enhancing the element of surprise. Pretty smart strategy, if you ask me. Second, Israel has significant human intelligence assets inside Iran. These are the same assets that smuggled drones and rocket equipment into Iran weeks before the attacks. You think these folks would miss uranium being moved around from one site to another? They watch those sites all the time. Third, and this is important, is Israel has eliminated, I use that term to be polite, eliminated virtually all of Iran's nuclear scientists and high-ranking military leaders. Now, you can't build a nuclear bomb without people who know how to build a nuclear bomb. Common sense just tells you that. Now, here's the bottom line. Success of these operations has seriously weakened the power-hungry mullahs that run Iran. They are in more danger from their own people than they have ever been before. If the Iranian people were to revolt, these mullahs would go the same way as Gaddafi and Assad. This also leaves Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis without their main sponsor, without Iranian money and weapons. They'll either die on the vine or they'll be eliminated by Israel. Finally, we might actually see some peace in the Mideast. But let me tell you something else. We cannot rest on our successes. The Iranian leadership has always lied to us. In their culture, they have no issue lying to infidels like us, because in their eyes, we have no right to the truth. Now, the Iranian people have shown that they're unwilling to revolt, probably because of the brutality of Iran's secret police. So we must stay vigilant. Now, here's what's really changed in the geopolitical landscape. The Iranian ambassador was recently in Moscow asking for Putin for help. You know what Putin gave him? He gave him a lot of sympathy, but no aid. Putin probably sees Iran as a loser he shouldn't invest in. Plus, let's face it, he's stretched thin by his own criminal war in the Ukraine. Our NATO allies also see America differently now, too. In the recent NATO summit, allied leaders praised the U.S. for its leadership. Now, in fairness, the change in NATO's attitude is partly due to Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. That did a lot to change their attitude and increase their desired spending for defense. These are important changes in the geopolitical landscape. Now, let's talk about Vladimir Putin for a little bit. This man is an obvious war criminal, wasting Russian people and resources on his own egomaniacal goals. Putin is the worst kind of autocrat, a liar, a thief, and a murderer. He doesn't care how many people die to achieve his greedy goals for territory and for power. Now, the way to stop Putin is to support Ukraine with troops, armaments, and air superiority. NATO, including the U.S., should supply the forces needed to push the Russians out of Ukraine, including the Crimea. Push them out entirely. But we should be careful that NATO troops don't invade Russia proper. We must allow the Ukraine to hit targets inside Russia, including nuclear sites if necessary, and even take Russian territory to force Putin to surrender. Now, you might reasonably ask, wouldn't Putin use nuclear weapons if we push him too hard? Well, let me tell you why he won't. Putin knows that launching a nuclear weapon means suicide for him and Russia. The concept of mutually assured destruction still applies. Now, Putin is the ultimate survivor. He won't use nuclear weapons because he knows it means his own destruction. It didn't happen during the Cuban Missile Crisis. If it didn't happen then, it won't happen now. Now, here in Texas, we understand that sometimes you have to call the other guy's bluff. What I'm advocating in the Ukraine is calling the other guy's bluff. Now, this brings us to China and Taiwan. If we follow successes against Iran with successes against Russia, China will take note. Their ambitions to take Taiwan will be significantly tempered. Now, Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher who wrote The Art of War, wrote about winning without fighting. That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. Here's what we should do. Move 2 of our 11 operational carrier task forces to the South China Sea and the Western Pacific. Base 1 in Singapore, 1 near Taiwan, if not on Taiwan itself. This would be a serious impediment to any Chinese invasion plans. Now remember, China has never been successful in a war outside their own boundaries in its entire history. An amphibious invasion of Taiwan is an extremely difficult military operation. China would be foolish to attempt it against a US-led alliance. Now finally, let's talk about North Korea. This country is very weak, propped up by China and Russia. Kim Jong-un maintains power through fear, controlling the army, the secret police, and those horrible gulags where he sends all the people he doesn't murder. But here's an interesting approach that instead of attacking North Korea directly, why not follow the example of the Mongols who conquered China? They didn't attack the Great Wall. They didn't overcome the Great Wall by force of arms. They bribed the guards to open the gates and just let them in. Now, the U.S. and our allies should consider bribing the North Korean army and the secret police to overthrow Kim Jong-un. Even if we spend billions, it's money well spent. Once united, Korea could feed its people. The famines would be eliminated. They could redistribute land to the people, dismantle the gulags, and begin industrial development. Think about the opportunities that would create for the Korean people, for a united Korea, the opportunities it would create for a new Pacific Rim and for the world. Let me be clear about something. Some folks will call my conversation with you today warmongering. I call it preventing much larger conflicts through strength and decisive action. History tells us that appeasing dictators only makes things worse. A more aggressive policy might have avoided World War II entirely. Patriots, here's what you can do. Discuss these ideas with your friends and family over dinner. Think about what American leadership means in today's world. Share your thoughts with us in the comments section of our site. And next time, we'll examine the decline of the Democratic Party in California and New York. Does this mark the end of our traditional two-party system. Now, I maintain that democracy needs viable opposition to remain healthy. Don't you think? I don't want to see the Democratic Party go under and leave us without viable opposition. But we'll talk about that in the next episode. Until then, God bless you and yours, and God bless America.